It is finally upon us, the very first flavor pack for Crusader Kings 3 titled Northern Lords. I've partnered with Paradox Interactive to bring you this comprehensive video discussing a lot of the amazing features coming in both the flavor pack, Northern Lords, as well as a quick look at some of the content being delivered for all players in patch version 1.3. In addition, Crusader Kings 3 will be free to play until March 21st, so go ahead and download it on Steam to give it a try if you haven't already. This is a really exciting DLC that really brings the Norse culture and Asachi religions to life with a bevy of new decisions. Kingdom management options, personal duels, new men-at-arms, perks, the list just goes on and on. The way I'm going to structure this video is by quickly going over 3 of the bigger additions coming with patch version 1.3. And from there, we will discuss a lot of the major additions in the flavor pack as broken down by new UI and barbershop options, decisions, legacies, men-at-arms, the Varangian Adventures, and then close our video out talking about some of the new perks, or at least the ones I've been able to find. If you'd like to skip ahead, you can quickly navigate to each section of the video as denoted by the chapters in the timeline for any information you're particularly interested in. Well, let's get started on the changes coming with the Northern Lords DLC and patch version 1.3 for Crusader Kings 3. To start this video out though, we are going to talk about some of the free content coming with version 1.3. And that includes poetry, the new winter system that was teased, as well as duels or trial by combat. Now, we're going to start off with winter because it's a little, it seems a little self-explanatory, but it does have some granularity to it that is pretty interesting. So we're going to take a look at the land of the Rus, and we're going to click here on Rusa, and we're going to hover over here, and we see that the winter severity is mild. And again, you'll see this in the same location you would see the actual terrain type, and it depends on a number of factors. So it depends on where it is on the map. Also, what level, quote unquote, of winter are we in? Are we just in early autumn, like kind of like mid-autumn with November, or are we in like the dead of winter? And that will change the winter severity level. So mild is right there, kind of very easy, it's right at the very bottom level. Then as we progress north, you can see this little icon. As I click some of these, you'll see that they kind of change around, right? So right now, the winter severity is normal. Supply loss in the province is affected by winter at a -5. Taking a look real quick back at mild, you can see it was at -2. But if we move a little bit further north, we can really start to see some crazy regions. And you can get an idea of how bad it is by looking at the actual region on the map. And this little snowflake will evolve as you get to some pretty snow-covered regions like this, versus some of the ones down here, which are less snow covered. But this bad boy right here says winter severity harsh. Supply loss in provinces affected by winter -10. Fatal casualties in provinces affected by winter -20%. And defender advantage in provinces affected by winter +5. So as a defender, it's easier for you. And there's also perks that are affixed to this, like Winter Soldier, that you can get special advantages for moving and advantage in snow lands. Now, it's not just simply the northern regions of the map. If you look at portions of the map that have a high amount of mountains, these will typically also have a winter that is normal or harsh, depending upon, again, what that situation looks like for those individual regions here. So you can see we're over at the northern portion of Italy, and the Alps are pretty crazy, right? So this has got a harsh winter right here, whereas this one over here just had a mild. So be mindful of this when you are playing in the new version 1.3, because winter is really going to affect how your warfare is dealt out across the map. You're going to be having 6 or 10% attrition in the beginning portions of winter if you're in a prolonged bit of combat. Speaking of combat, let's go into the new duel system, or trial by combat. This is relegated to other Norse characters on the map, or at least in your diplomatic range. So we're going to go ahead and open this up, go to our decisions, and we're going to look at this. You can challenge Count Anandr to single combat, or trial by combat. And it's he has committed a crime against you, adulterer, but cannot be imprisoned, allowing you to challenge him to a trial by combat. So this is really going to be dependent upon your individual prowess. Now, you can also nominate, if you are the subject of a trial by combat and you are particularly not a good combatant, you can nominate another champion to fight in your stead. So let's go ahead and take a look. We have 17 prowess. Go ahead and press trial by combat, and we've got 4 options that pop up here. So the possible outcome here is that I'm killed, or he's killed. Whoever wins is going to get some prestige because it is a duel to the death. But there's also gold, in which case he is going to pay me money if I win. I will get stress if I lose. A weak hook, in which case I will get a hook from the count, the subject in question, or I will gain stress. And then lastly, humiliation, in which case I will inflict a critical stress event on my opponent, or again, I will gain stress. Let's click to the death because it's fun and I have gotten killed like almost every time I've tested this out. So we're going to unpause. This will progress a little bit far forward. Let's go ahead and fast forward that. Here we go. So basically this will start to play itself out in a number of text prompts. You might recognize this, or at least a similar system, in one of the mods on the Steam Workshop. So let's go ahead and press May the Best Man Win. And it already starts out. And if you have to really read these, because it's going to give you context clues as to what's happening. So for a few brief moments, Count Under and I pace in a lazy half circle, each watching for an opening. I heft my axe ready to defend myself while he clutches his sword firmly to hand. Only one of us is walking away from here today, and I intend it to be me. With a sudden twitch, our bout begins. With strength and Hoder's trustiness, scum, screams my opponent, whirling his sword furiously at, around, and near me. Now, this can be any number of things right here. I've done this before where he headbutted me and broke my nose, and it gave me a reduction to my prowess. So you definitely, you never know what you're going to get. So you then are given 3 or 4 options dependent upon your stewardship skill. You can throw like a bag of silver at them, or your martial ability. You can really kind of outsmart them when it comes to combat and strategy. So you have a bunch of different approaches here. So when I hover over this, I can see that what has already happened, regardless of which choice I choose, is that Count Under has a high increase to his likelihood of success and a very high increase to his risk of injury. Now, I can choose Expert Onslaught. You throw out a flurry of rapid attacks and counters, a high increase to your likelihood of success and a medium increase to your risk of injury. Or Attack First, Attack Hard, On Guard. Lightning Assault, very high increase to your likelihood of success with a high increase to your risk of injury. And then lastly, Tire the Opponent. So a low increase to my likelihood of success, it becomes harder to injure myself, but no increase to your risk of injury, which is quite nice. But for this video, let's go ahead and just do this one, right? The very high risk, high reward. And boom, another one pops up here. So really the 2 lines that are important are these 2 at the bottom, these 2 stanzas or paragraphs as it were. My form is good with only small errors and Anander's stance is failing. My opponent is still holding off my blows well, but he seems close to faltering. So again, we have an Expert Onslaught, we have Tire Opponent again, but now look at this. We have an option here because of our martial skill. Maggots, you think you can stand against me. In command, you try to intimidate Anander as though he were one of your soldiers. So again, what has already happened is he has a medium increase to his success and to his risk of injury. This will lower my stress, lower my increase to risk of injury, and it won't have any effect on likelihood of success. But again, let's go crazy here. Let's strike, parry, riposte. Go right at him. And single combat victory. So my axe arm moves fast as lightning and strikes as hard as sundered stone. Honestly, it's admirable that Anandur is able to withstand as many axe blows as he does as I rain down on him with all the fury of a thunderous storm. So we have just won our duel. Now, it is worth noting that his prowess was not that high at 10, and mine was at 17, which is, of course, excellent. But in testing this, I lost this. And even doing this portion of the video, I didn't know if I'd win or lose. You definitely have to really be mindful of the options that you're selecting in those 3 choices, because you might get a little too zealous. It's a very high chance to injure yourself. You've just injured yourself. You've reduced your prowess, and he got the killing blow. So I've died like 2 or 3 times testing this out. But this is the brand new trial by combat system coming in patch version 1.3. One of the only other systems I want to talk about here before we jump into the actual DLC is the new poetry system. For poetry, we're going to have to switch over to a different character that actually has the trait active. So let's take a look at the trait itself. It will be giving us a diplomacy bonus per our level of fame of +1, and it will help with stress loss by 10%. So the way this really works is you can send a poem to anyone within diplomatic range of you. You right click here, go to send poem, and you've got some options. It just depends on what type of character you're sending a poem to. So The real benefit here is you can actually bolster another person's position or completely subvert it. And it really has a very minimal cost of 75 prestige to do so. So I can increase their opinion of me and increase piety. Or we can do the same thing and increase prestige. Or again, if I really want to just take the seat out from under this person, I can detail their incompetence. Losing opinion, of course, but also causing a critical stress event. So there are a lot of really cool options with poetry. And it doesn't just end there. I can go over here, right click on my concubine, send a poem, and I can send her a work about romance, thus increasing her opinion of me substantially. So this is a great way to romance people and invite them into your court if you're looking to get other courtiers, or if you're just looking to have a very crazy intrigue lifestyle where you're just marrying and doing tons of terrible adulterous things throughout other people's court. You can do it with the poetry mechanic. But you can also use poetry to torture people that are prisoners in your holding cell. Poetry is a system that came over from Crusader Kings 2, and it is an extremely enjoyable new mechanic added in with patch version 1.3. Let's pivot over to the Northern Lords DLC. Now, it's worth noting about the two starting times of 867 versus 1066. The majority of the spice, I guess I'll say, is really present in 867. You can get some of the major decisions and minor decisions activated in 1066 as long as you're using some form of Nordic culture group, or I guess Northern Germanic group as your culture. But really, in order to get the most out of this DLC, you're going to want to start in any of the major Norse and Asatru 867 starting locations. So let's jump in and talk a little bit about the UI and barbershop changes that are coming with this patch and DLC. You might have already realized some of the UI changes, and they really only apply to any of the Norse Asatru characters. You can notice that all of the UI is very stylized and really Nordic and looks pretty badass. So if I actually zoom out, we're going to switch over to a Finnish character just to kind of make my point here. And you'll see any of the Finns, even though they are tribal and they're still pagan, they have the same style of UI. But switching back to any of the Norse characters, it again gives me that cool new Norse UI. You'll also notice that a number of flags have been created with this DLC. So they look different, they look cooler, they're more intricate, like this little guy right here, this one over here as well. You can see there's a lot of really awesome ones, like the symbol for Odin over here in the Kingdom of Sweden. So a lot of really cool new banners have been added here as well. But we're going to switch back over to this character, and I'm going to bring up the barbershop. Right click and go to the barbershop. Now you have got some new clothes in the Northern Lords series of both high, low, commoner clothing as well as Lord's armor. You know what? I'll actually this is one of the new cloaks too, but we'll remove the cloak. You can see all that. There we go. We'll quickly go through it. Also in patch version 1.3, you can now access all of the clothing regardless of your character's position. So if you wanted to wear papal robes as a Norse Asatru character, you absolutely can. But that was added with 1.3. Also some new headwear. We get these cool new helmets that I'm just not even going to attempt to butcher, even though I know I will. Some new Norse crowns, Norse circlet, the Jarl's cap. There are plenty of new barbershop options added in with this DLC. We also get some new hair choices here with the Bondi's cut, the Jarl, the long wavy, the young Wigman, the old Berserker. So some really cool new additions here, as well as the beard itself for the Huskarl braids, Aspiring Viking, the massive braid, the grizzled Varangian, which we're going to get into a bit. There's plenty of Varangian stuff to talk about. So a bunch of new additions here to the barbershop and to the UI. One last thing I do want to talk about with the UI is the addition of dismissing all the notifications in the lower right corner. This was previously, again, a mod. So if I look over here, I can see I can click to hide it or right click to dismiss it. If I hover over this though, I can right click to dismiss all. And this is such a huge boon when you have a ton of notifications that have been queued up, or you're working through stuff quickly. You get like 4 or 5, and maybe you already know them. You don't need to read them. I can right click, and they're all gone. So a massive improvement to the UI, and of course to the barbershop. But let's jump into some of the new decisions that have been added with this DLC. These new major decisions will depend upon which character you're playing for the Norse Asatru. Are you over here in Norway? Are you over here in England? Or are you over here in the land of the Rus? So we're going to go through some of these, and we'll be able to move through some of them as I've done some testing and I've gotten to the point where we can actually activate the decision. So when you start off as a Rurikid, you actually will have the option to do 2 of the decisions right away. So the first one here is raise a runestone. This is pretty sweet. So you're going to gain some piety, you're going to gain some fame, and then you have a choice between Ancestral, Conquest, or Clout Runestone. Now, from what I have experienced, it seems to be random which runestone is created and where it is created. But Ancestral will increase popular opinion, Conquest will increase growth, and Clout will increase levy size. So you're going to pay 50 gold and you're going to have that runestone added to your realm. And this will happen every 10 years as long as you stay on top of it. But one thing to note too is the runestone will be destroyed if the county falls to someone outside of your dynasty. So if you lose it, not if someone occupies it, they have to actually take that territory. So that's worth noting. So let's click but what to carve. And it says, hey, here, rock through the ages, subject. So I can choose again, do I really want this to go through, or do I just say, no, thanks. But we'll go ahead and say, let's go through. And it looks like we will be creating the Clout Runestone. And this will give us a levy size increase of 25%, which is really strong, especially in the beginning portions of your game. So I can do this in Luki, in Tikhiven, I mispronounced it, I'm sorry, and Belozero. Belarus, I believe is what it becomes. So we have these locations, and again, they are random, so I can do it up there. That's not where Belarus is. This location over here, or this one down over here. Now I'm going to go with this one because it's right next to my capital, and it just kind of makes sense. So then in this location, I have got a runestone that was created for me, and it will constantly kind of give me the advantage of the clout and increase to my levy size. So a real nice one there. Now, in addition, we can also determine personal deity. So this one is really nice because you can do this every 2 years, and you can change this depending upon maybe how your faction is rolling out. You know, hey, I've conquested a ton of land. Maybe being a devotee of Ulir is just not as important to me anymore, so I don't need to do it. We can maybe do a Freyr over here for fertility, or maybe even Odin over here for intrigue and piety. So you have a lot of different options, but essentially this will give you a permanent bonus for as long as you stay devoted to one of these 4 gods. So we have Odin for 2 intrigue and piety per dread of 0.03 per month. Ulir, which is going to give us martial, it's going to give us speed, and it's going to give us advantage in winter, which is really nice. There is another ability called Winter Soldier, which is basically a souped up version of the devotee. If you stack those 2 together, it works quite well. I think actually, I think my son starts with Winter Soldier. Nope, he doesn't. It's random. But Thor here gives us stewardship and prowess. And then Freyr gives us fertility and control growth. So you can choose those. We're going to say dedicate your worship to a particular god. And we're going to go ahead and choose this one because Rurik is a warlike character in the beginning of the game. Why not do it? And then if I jump over here, I can see that I'm devotee there, and it's a nice little bonus that's going to help me out as I'm expanding my lands. Now, in addition to that, there are some new other little minor decisions. The most important one I would say here is have the realm embrace local traditions. Now you might remember this as, you know, it'll say something like convert to local culture. This is one we've had before, but have the realm embrace is nicer because look at this. We get embrace local traditions, so it helps popular and Norse opinions, though they can still raise runestones, which is cool too. But you adopt the Russian culture and you convert to Slovakia Pravda, which is really nice, the Slovakian truth as it were. So this kind of is a 2-pronged attack versus this one, which just converts your Russian culture. Just I guess as a heads up, though, also you get the settled dynasty. The Scandinavian dynasty has settled in foreign lands. Every close family member sharing your culture adopts both the culture and the religion, including my wife. So it's a really nice little way to just jump into both the religion and the culture. Keep in mind, I guess if you are playing Rurik, You cannot adopt the special succession type because you are part of the Norse culture, which allows you to have Scandinavian elective, I believe it is. So if you do that and you're playing Rurik, be mindful of that. But we have some other new major decisions. We're going to go ahead and load another save of so I can show you some of those as well. So jumping up forward a little bit, you can see that our lands are plentiful here, and we have conquest enough to do to forge a holy order. So take a look at this. Forge the Jomsvikings. Now the old ways are dying daily. Abrahamics lure away our small folk with promises of eternal life for all. So this allows you to create a holy order for any of your Norse Asatru characters. Now, what is cool about this and how this differs from your typical Catholicism holy order is that yes, they will take up a land, or they will lease out land as the headquarters for their holy order. But this is different than it is for Catholicism, which will take one of your lands. This will create its own castle settlement in the region. So you're not losing something. I think, for example, I did this and it created one right here. So it just popped it up because I chose that was the region I wanted to go in, and voila, it's done. We'll show you that in a little bit. But in addition to that, you also get an army of 1,500 men in Novgorod, which is great because the one thing that's always been a kind of a Achilles heel for the Holy Order is, sure, you're the patron of the Holy Order. That means that you can recruit them or hire them for free, but everyone always contracts them out before you can get to it. Giving you this really cool little special allotment of force of men allows you to have very strong soldiers that are the brand new men-at-arms, which we'll go into in a little bit, that allow you to use them without actually having to contract out the Holy Order. So it's really nice. So the requirements here, though, are independent ruler, level of fame, illustrious, level of devotion, faithful, you're Asatru, and you're unreformed. That's very important as well. And you have any of my held titles, all of these, rank is equal to a count, coastal, and is in southern and eastern Baltic coast region. Must have at least one empty castle or city holding besides the county capital. So Valhalla for the worthy alone. So I click this, and voila, it creates it right there for me. I get some banging music to let me know I just created my Jomsvikings, and they are off to do war. So the old ways are the best. We founded the Holy Order. I can click over here to military, and I can see that I get those special volunteers. And don't worry, we're going to go into all those men-at-arms in a bit. And it's over here in the Holy Orders. So the brand new Jomsvikings is a really exciting Holy Order added to the Asatru. Jumping ahead once more, we have another major decision that is set out before us, and let us take a look at it. So we're going to jump over here to found the capital of the Rus. This is a new decision that's added in for the lands of the Rus, right? This allows us to essentially get a growing capital and Varangian capital for 20 and 100 years. The big thing here too is development level will increase by 24. That's part of the effects. Now development is not amazing when you're in tribal, but it does allow an increase to your supply so you can have more soldiers in the capital region, and it's going to be crucial when you transition over to feudal. But growing capital will give us popular opinion plus 50, and Varangian capital, look at this, levy size and holding taxes plus 50%. It's pretty substantial. And this honestly, as Rurik, is not that hard to accomplish. We're at 877 AD, so you can see it didn't take me a whole ton of time to become an independent ruler, not imprisoned. Chieftain of Novgorod is de jure part of the Empire of Russia. At least one of these, your level of fame is exalted among men, or you are illustrious and you completely control Kiev. And the date is not 1100 AD. So that's the only two other requirements. So let's go ahead and say a grand capital forevermore. And this creates the capital of the Rus in Novgorod, and this is a pretty pivotal thing. There is an achievement attached to this as well if you create the lands of the Rus, so this is really cool to see this kind of locked alongside it. I would love for it to actually create the Empire Kievan Rus, but hopefully we'll see that in some sort of future patch or DLC for the game. So this concludes all of our major decisions for this region, but let's go ahead and switch characters over to just King Bjorn Ironside, because this is another one of the new big decisions. Secure the High Kingdom of the North Sea. This is a bit bigger than the other two. And we're going to get to the third one in a second here. But this one is huge. You get the North Sea Empire title, which is cool. Changes your government to feudal, which is a great way to just adopt feudal ways without actually going through all of the innovations. So it's pretty cool. All tribal holdings in the realm will become castle holdings. My tribal vassals will change to feudalism. You gain High King of the Seas. Look at this. Life expectancy plus 10. Vassal opinion 30. Embarkation cost minus 50%. Naval speed plus 25%. Vassal levy contribution plus 50%. So even though you're going to feudal, you're getting a huge amount of vassals that are going to be added in to your vassal allotment, as it were, your total soldiers up here, than you would normally if you're feudal. But also you get the Kingdom of England, Denmark, and Norway as just de jure part of the title of the North Sea, which is really powerful when it comes to succession. But here's the caveat. The requirements are hefty. Independent ruler, not a big deal. Level of fame, illustrious. Again, not that hard. You completely control the region of the North Sea Heartlands. Let's click this and it'll show us all this region right here. And then all of this right here are the North Sea Heartlands. Your highest held title is less than Empire rank. Norse culture has not reached High Medieval Era, which should be easy. The Danelaw currently has de jure counties and England must be departitioned first. So this last part is pretty difficult, but very, very doable. These three, though, are the hardest because you have to hold the Kingdom of Denmark. Let's go ahead and move this right here. Hold the Kingdom of Denmark right here, the Kingdom of England right here, and the Kingdom of Norway right here. All that for 30 years each. So you have to really control a large amount of land, and you could easily do it with one ruler if you're very measured in your approach. It'll probably take you one, if not two rulers to really get all of them and hold them for 30 years. But once you do, you create a massive empire. You get a disgusting amount of feudal strength because of the High King of the Seas, which is an awesome title. But that vassal levy contribution is huge. So this is a really, really, really fun and exciting and probably the best and coolest decision of the DLC. But we do have one other one similar to this. We're going to move over here to Ivar the Boneless, or at least his daughter, granddaughter or something of the sort. We have Elevate the Kingdom of Mann and the Isles. So this is pretty nifty, right? So this is going to have a lot of effects, but let's go through the requirements first here. You're independent. Your level of fame is Living Legend. You have the title Isle of Man and the title Man. So you own the duchy and the earldom itself. So you just have to own this right here. The highest title is less than or equal to duchy. And that's important to note is this DLC does not want you to be a king for some of it and doesn't want you to be an emperor for the best portion of it, the secure High Kingdom of the North Sea. So there's a limitation on what you can do with some of these major and minor decisions, and even some of these casus belli based off of your rank. So you have to be mindful of that. And we're going to get to it when we talk about the Varangian Adventure. But you have the trait Viking, which is not easy. You have to do a lot of raids to earn Viking. So that's not easy to come by. But look at all the effects here. So gains legacy of piracy, can raid regardless of government type, can raid overseas and sail in major rivers, which is huge because that is tied to your Norse innovations of longships. So no longer is that a case. But embarkation cost is minus 50% and raid speed is plus 50% as well. Renown, you get a huge bonus there. The Kingdom of Man and the Isles becomes your part of the Petty Kingdom of Man. You get the Kingdom of Man right here as an actual title in and of itself. The earldom becomes your new realm capital. You get an army of 7,500 men in the Isle. Changes your government to feudal, all tribal holdings, blah, blah, blah. As far as my tribal holding of the Isle of Man gains 3 building slots. So you can see that this really gets kind of out of control fast. Also, the development in that actual earldom becomes plus 20. The culture changes to Norse, gains the stolen city for 100 years, building construction cost and time reduced by 200% and 50%. It's insane, right? Like both of these are really, really, really strong. And you can really see that you can become just a terror of the northern portions of the map using some of the major decisions within this DLC. And I think it's very, very exciting. The last thing I'm going to show you guys is the Grand Blot. You can move over here to this character and you can hold a Grand Blot. And this allows you to do sacrifices for the gods. And it will, you can increase the scale in which you sacrifice and what you do sacrifice. You can say, hey, I'm going to sacrifice these prisoners, or it's just going to be animals, whatever it is. You have to have some requirements, but for the most part, they're pretty easy to meet. We're going to go ahead and press in death rebirth. And we get to choose, you know, do we want just a little one? Do we want a big one? Or do we want to go like a real, oh, sorry, we go nowhere with this one. This is on second thought, but we're just going to go all free men of my domain. So this makes it for a larger blot. We're going to fast forward to get to the next decision. It actually takes a considerable amount of time in between decisions with the blot. And do keep in mind that I am working on a pre-release version of the game, so that actually might be reduced come the actual launch here. But once the blot actually gets going, we get to decide, okay, is this just going to be an animal sacrifice, or only the finest sacrifices will do, man and animal alike. So as you scale up in this, it's going to cost you more money, but reward you with higher piety and increase opinion and popular opinion of subjects and people that attended. But of course, there's also the caveat that opinion and popular opinion gain with Asatruans will be less than with human sacrifices. Subjects that do not endorse human sacrifice will not lose opinion or popular opinion. So it just depends on which one you do, because if you say, oh, hey, you know, we'll do just this one. Well, we don't endorse human sacrifices. It's just animals. That's fine. Versus this one says, hey, we don't like human sacrifices, but you're going to do it anyway. So those subjects will lose any of that popular opinion. Subjects that do not endorse human sacrifice will lose ample opinion and popular opinion because you are doing a significant sacrifice. So we'll do this one, just go further into debt. And we will be able to finish that Grand Blot. There we go. So with that, we gain a massive amount of opinion with one individual. That's the person who attended the Blot. And then I can either do this one, though, to make this a Grand Blot of the people. You know, when to loses Grand Sacrifice, but becomes People's Grand Sacrifice, meaning I get a popular opinion increase of 50. All of these other things have happened. Every invited Asatruan character gets a 30 opinion increase. Every invited Asatruan county went to Grand Sacrifice for a 30 popular opinion. And every realm character who does not practice human sacrifices loses 50 opinion. I also gain 250 piety. So these are the new Grand Blots that have been activated in the game with the Northern Lords DLC. If you play in the latter bookmark for history, it doesn't say Grand Blot, it'll say Grand Sacrifice. It'll make that transition because the Norse culture has changed into what all of the different regions, different cultures of this region become in 1066 versus this one. So this is our major decisions there, but let's jump into some other portions of this DLC. Dynasty Legacies are a huge part of Crusader Kings 3, and they've been fleshed out even further in not just this DLC, but also in patch version 1.3. So in the DLC, we get both Adventure and Pillage as new legacies to the Northern Lords, all of these Norse Asatru, and they're quite strong. Sea Wolves here is going to increase your naval speed, your prowess, your prestige and fame from battles by 100%, which is huge. Always space in the hold, army loot capacity increased by 50%, max size of heavy infantry regiments +2. It just gets better and better as you go along. I'm hopping over these real quick. You can just jump back and pause if you want to look at any one of them in specific. But for Adventure, we get Wanderlust, which gives you the ability to send someone on, or send them to the Varangian Guard, which is awesome, right? Dynasty Head gains the ability to pay prestige in order to send away unlanded adult Dynasty members to potentially gain skills and traits. So you're not having someone take vows, you're sending them off to on a grand journey of adventure, and they come back even stronger. But you increase your diplomatic range as well. But I'm going to go ahead and look at some of these. I'm just going to hover over them and then just reverse real quick and take a look at the ones you want to take a look at by pausing real quick. But some of these are awesome. But in addition to all of these, every single one of the existing legacies has been increased in its effectiveness. Take, for example, House Warriors. Well, now everything gets an increase. It used to just have one bonus, now it has two. So the previous bonus that was there prior to 1.3 is there plus an additional one. So now we get prowess and night effectiveness. We get pursuit efficiency and retreat losses added into this rather than just the Casus Belli minus 20%. Squire Traditions, monthly martial lifestyle experience plus 10%, but Dynasty members are less likely to die or get wounded in battle and have a higher chance of gaining prowess serving as knights. So a lot of these have really gotten pretty awesome and are just not so lackluster anymore. It used to just be, okay, I'm just going to go down Blood because Blood's the strongest. And Blood is probably the only one that really wasn't touched because for the most part, everything in Blood is just pretty strong. Everything else got a secondary attribute affixed to it to make it a little bit more worthwhile, meaning you don't have to go down just Blood to get the most out of your characters and legacy when you're playing Crusader Kings 3. So I'll just quickly hover over all these. We've got these other 3 down here to quickly just jump over. And again, you can just pause and reverse, go to look at the ones you'd like to look at. And then the last 2 here. And there you go. Those are your new legacies that are coming both in patch 1.3 for the standard legacies and these top 2 in the new Northern Lords DLC. We've talked about decisions, we've talked about poetry, we've talked about legacies, but now let's talk about those brand new men-at-arms. Probably one of the most exciting portions of this DLC. And there's 4 that you can recruit into your army. And these are all tied to your innovations. So we're going to bring up the Norse innovations over here. Scroll to the very bottom for cultural and regional, and we can see 3 new ones. Viking Tactics, which adds 3 of the new regiment or the men-at-arms, and then 1 more in herds here, which gives us Huskarls. Now we also have the longships. One thing I did want to talk about with longships is there's now a new 3D representation of them on the map. They don't just look like any other boat. They look like a badass longboat that is just going downstream. They're much bigger. They're way more imposing. They're really awesome. In addition here too, we have All Things, which is pretty cool, but this is just known to the Norse in general. But Varangian Adventures is the big one, and we'll talk about that in the next section as we go into that new adventure system with the Northern Lords DLC. Let's take a look here at our 4 new men-at-arms. I keep wanting to say regiments of renown, but our 4 new men-at-arms here. So the first one is Huskarls. Now, all of the men-at-arms are based off of another base type of unit. So the Huskarls and Varangian veterans are based off of the armored footmen. So all of what I talk about as far as stats go, it's going to be based off of the armored footmen when I'm going to say, hey, it's increased damage or toughness or so on and so forth. So talking about the Huskarl, we get 6 more damage than your base armored footman. I have some benefits here, so I'm just looking at that base value of 40. Also, we get 4 more toughness than our base armored footman, and we get the advantage of 24 speed. Armored footmen counter spearmen, while Huskarls counter both spearmen and archers, and they get added terrain effect bonuses in taiga and in forests, which is huge. Now, one of the biggest things of all of these men-at-arms is the increase bonus when you're fighting in winter, since that will be such a huge part of all the lands you're going to be fighting in the Northern Lords DLC. You'll get a toughness and a screen bonus for your Huskarls. Moving into the Varangian veterans, we're going to see an even further increase of 9 damage and 8 toughness to the Varangian veterans over armored footmen. Keep in mind, though, that this will also have full maintenance and unraised maintenance increase per the, respective unit. Obviously, Varangians, which are substantially better than armored footmen, are going to cost more. Full maintenance at 1 fame a month versus this, which is 0.6. So just to kind of keep those kind of numbers in mind. But also with the Varangian veterans, we get a pursuit of 10, which is quite nice. And they counter spearmen, and this time heavy cavalry rather than archers like the Huskarls do. They get a bonus fighting in the farmlands, plains, and hills. And again, those winter effect bonuses that give us toughness and screen bonuses, which is quite nice. So what's really cool about these men-at-arm characters, these Huskarls and these Varangians, is that it grants pursuit and screen, depending on who it is, on these units, which is quite nice. Usually pursuit is relegated pretty much to horsemen of some way, shape, or form, so it's cool to get these activated on these units and actually have a really cool way to screen or to pursue with your Norse characters. Now, in addition, we get the Bondi here, and I apologize if I mispronounced that here, but they are essentially spearmen, and we're looking at pikemen as our spearmen template. So they're not as strong, but they are cheaper, and they have a couple more uses here. So when we look at their actual profile, they have 8 less damage and 6 less toughness, but they gain 12 pursuit, which is really strong, and they counter both light cavalry and archers, things that you will see in abundance in the early portion of the game. Pikemen only counter light cavalry and heavy cavalry. You will not be seeing as much light cavalry, or as much heavy cavalry in this time bookmark. As far as terrain effects, bonuses in farmlands and in plains, substantial ones too. Like, look at that. Farmlands bonus is 10 damage, 10 pursuit, and 6 toughness. But they do suffer penalties in hills, mountains, and desert mountains, but they get bonuses as well in the winter, both damage and pursuit. Our last one here is a bit of a hybrid unit in between light footmen and bowmen in the Vizhmen, or I think it's a Vizhmen. I'm not, again, 100% sure on how to pronounce that. But when it comes to these guys, we get 8 less damage than your archers because that's their type. They are archers, so we're comparing them to bowmen. So bowmen have 26 damage. These guys have 18. But they get 10 more toughness, up to 20 from the archers 10, and 22 screen, which is very nice. They also get a counter to skirmishers, again, something you'll be dealing with a lot in the early game from light footmen. And they get a substantial bonus to fighting in farmlands, plains, and taiga. And of course, they also get their bonuses when they're fighting in winter. So these are all of our new men-at-arms. In addition, there are some other ones that you get, like these guys are, oh, there they go. Where are they? The Jomsvikings pirates that I think are just relegated to special units for your special soldiers here. I have not seen a way to recruit them, but I could have just missed it. But that seems to be the only other character that I haven't gotten. And we can kind of compare them here. What are they? They are skirmishers. Oh, that's crazy. They're skirmishers. That's really nice. So you can see these guys. We got them as a reward for creating our Holy Order, right? The Jomsvikings. So we're able to have them at our disposal as part of that 1,500 special volunteer force. Let's jump into now 2 of the last things to talk about. One in the new Varangian Adventures, and then lastly some of the new perks. So the new Viking adventure, Casus Belli, is a really exciting one that allows you to really take advantage of all the different ways you can start out as any Norse Asatru character. Because when you take a look at all those characters, almost all of them start as dukes and have a very challenging way to becoming kings. And that's the thing here, is you need to be a duke to do this. So we've switched on over to a duke, and I'm going to just choose, we'll choose Bavaria. That's kind of a scary, huge chunk of land. I'm going to right click on him and choose declare war. And I've got this new one here. Varangian Adventures. There we go. So essentially what this does is, this is a special type of war where the attacker intends to move their realm to the war target wholesale. And it's a pretty drastic move here. So I'm going to click this. We're going to click this little button. I'm going to take a look at everything here. So we're going to change our objective. We can change it to whatever we want, but we can only choose duchies. We cannot select a kingdom because we're not invading a kingdom. We're doing a big adventure. The best way to think about this is think of where you'd want your new capital to be. So let's just choose Bohemia. Seems pretty fun. And we'll choose Bohemia. That'll be our objective. And we can't go through with this, but I want to go through how this actually works. So you seize all territory within King Ludwig's realm that is part of the Duchy of Bohemia. Jarldom of Viking is destroyed. Landed family will receive spare conquered counties. All old held titles will be destroyed or given independence. All old landed family titles will be destroyed or given independence. And all old vassals will be given independence. You gain 400 gold. You gain the trait Adventurer, which As you can see here is pretty awesome. Martial and prowess per level of fame. Man-at-arms maintenance minus 50%. General opinion. Ignore negative culture opinion. No negative opinion of other cultures. And opinion of adventurer characters plus 20. So you get a lot of benefits for doing this. And you can actually even do it multiple times, which is quite cool. Especially if you're going down that adventure line in the Legacies, trying to get more and more out of this. Trying to create this epic of this character that is moving all around the map. You gain fame, your allies share, and then there's your other ally situation going on here. So what is crazy about this is if I move here, everything here is lost. It'll become independent. It will go to family members that are staying, or I'm sorry, not family members, vassals that are staying. It'll just completely be dissolved. And then when I settle over here in Bohemia, all of the extra counties and everything will be taken by other family members if they so choose. I believe it's, what is it here? Landed family will receive spare conquered counties. So you are slapping yourself over in this direction. And it is quite awesome because you can basically say, okay, hey, I'm starting over here, but I really want to be this Viking character that goes and takes over Bavaria. And I'm going to do my first big act as a Varangian adventure and smack dab here in Bohemia. And after that, you can do whatever wars you so wish around here to get other locations. To give you an example of how this has already worked out, Heston, which starts over here, right at Montague, he has taken all of this land. All the white outline is his territory. He did his adventure. As you can see, he's an adventurer, and he has taken a huge part of and broken up Francia over in the eastern Francia. It's only that now. It's kind of crazy. You can really do a lot of big damage as a Varangian adventurer, and it's a cool way to have a very non-conventional play style in Crusader Kings 3, where you just kind of try to paint the map. This way, what you're doing is you're trying to really kind of gobble up more and more territory as this adventurer by saying, hey, I'm going to supplant everything I've ever created over here, and I'm going to go over there and do it. And the cool part about the Varangian adventure, let me jump back over to this, is North Germanics launching their first Varangian adventure receive up to a 2,000 bonus special soldiers. The amount going up with every same faith, same culture county they completely control within mainland Scandinavia. Oh, if I click this, should allow me to actually see that. Well, mainland Scandinavia is right over here. It's this whole swath right there. So any counties you control in there will give you that advantage. Again, you cannot be higher than the Duke, and you can only do this during the tribal era. After tribal, it is no longer available. So you can do this during the tribal era to get as much money or to get as much development, or maybe you want to choose a location with high development. There you go. That's mainland Scandinavia. Right there. Maybe you want to do this until you've acquired as much development as you need to make feudal, and then you pop yourself into the next era. So it's a really fun and exciting way to play Crusader Kings 3 that is, again, way different than you were normally used to when it comes to playing this game. All right, to close our video out here, we're going to talk about some of these new perks. Some of them here I actually have not been able to activate. Shield Maiden, you can't just simply make anyone a Shield Maiden. You can only make someone a Shield Maiden. You can see that no one in the game is actually even a Shield Maiden if they have a martial lifestyle. So what I mean by that is this character has a martial education trait. If I have that on a female character, you've created a Jomsvikings, you can actually make her a Shield Maiden. I don't have that. Unfortunately, I was unable to create it, so I wasn't able to have any actual Shield Maidens, but you can see how it increases their skill in combat and opinion of other characters. Now, another one which is pretty fun is Winter Soldier. Also my favorite Marvel movie. So movement speed and advantage in provinces affected by winter is plus 25% and plus 6. So it's very, very strong. And you can see how winter is going to play a huge part of this DLC and how that will be quite fun and interesting to use. Another one of the new traits is Adventurer, and we've already kind of seen this, but I'm just going to hover it over again just to have it in this location. Martial Prowess, you get your Men-at-Arms, you get your General Opinion, everything like that. Prowess, I'm sorry. Let's also do Poet, which we've already seen, but You get it. Those are all of our, we'll add Shield Maiden on this list so people can just see all of them. So these are some of the new ones that I have personally discovered. There might be even more traits that I have yet to discover, but I'm very excited to be playing this DLC. As I said before, if you have not yet picked it up, go ahead and use the Nexus store link in my description. It does help out the channel quite a bit. And I will be streaming a live stream of the new DLC and doing a giveaway. So please swing on over to the channel. I usually stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Day or Standard Time. I think by the time we're talking about this is Pacific Standard Time now. But swing on over, have some fun in stream. We always do about a 30-45 minute prelude where we do a history time talking about the history of the character we're playing, or at least the regional history or cultural history of that specific location. But that concludes our video here for today, guys. If you have any questions about the DLC or some things you're confused about, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. I'll be releasing another video talking about some really fun starting locations, as well as some new guides with the DLC. If there's anything in specific you'd really like to hear a guide about, again, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. Always happy to spread out as much information about the game as possible. And again, one more time, a huge shout out and thank you to Paradox for sponsoring this video. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.